This is the new and improved Porsche Macan S, to be specific. And for all the cars that Porsche is known for, like the legendary 911 and the all-electric Taycan, it's the Macan here that's actually been the best-selling car of the bunch for many years now. The thing is, the one that you see here is actually going to be the last piston-powered version of the Macan Porsche makes, because the next one is going to be all-electric and it's coming out in the next few years. So today we're going to find out what the last combustion-powered Macan is like and whether you should go for one now or wait for the EV. But before I go any further, why not give this video a thumbs up if you like what you see and subscribe for more awesome videos just like this one. One thing you won't see on the electric Macan are the sheer amount of grills that we have on the piston-powered one here, because it doesn't have an engine, so won't need that much cooling. Now, it's actually quite a fussy front end, yet it all seems to work together really well. It's a very, very striking looking car. Now, the Macan S is actually visually really similar to the regular Macan, although you can get optional body color bumpers at the base of the car and also around the skirts and at the back. One thing I did notice though is that on the Macan S and the GTS, they both get 2.9 litre V6 engines. The entry-level car gets a 4-cylinder engine, and I believe these vents that you see here, which are functional on the S and GTS, are blanked out on the entry-level car. We've got optional 21-inch wheels on this car. As standard, they come with 20s, and if you go for the very base spec car, they are 19s, but again, you can spec up to 20s if you want to. Also optional on this car is the gloss black surrounding to the windows. They come as chrome as standard. And one little cool design feature that you get on the side and the back of the car is this kind of like grooved finish to the plastic skirts at the base of the car. Not sure if I like it or not, but at least it looks different. But the big differentiator between the S and the entry-level car is we've got a quad exhaust system at the back of the car on the S. Now, this is painted in the optional black. You can get it as silver if you fancy it. This is the actual standard rear tail light cluster as well. You can get it smoked if you want to, so you won't have this red strip that runs along the back. Personally, I think it looks a little bit better too. You can also get black Porsche lettering if you fancy a more subtle look as well. Now, personally, I think the Macan is actually the best looking of the two SUVs that Porsche currently offers, the Macan and the Cayenne. You also have a slightly more sloped rear roofline here, so it's not quite a full SUV like a Cayenne, but it's not a proper coupe like a Mercedes GLC coupe. It kind of sits in the middle, and for that I think it's kind of the best proportion crossover there currently is. The Macan's got a clamshell style bonnet, which is just so sleek. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there are 3 different Macans to choose from. You've got the normal one, you've got the S that we have here, and then there's the top spec GTS. Now, the entry-level car gets a 2-litre 4-cylinder engine and produces 265 horsepower. But the S and the GTS both use the same 2.9-litre twin-turbo V6. In the S, it produces 380 horsepower, and on the GTS, that's bumped up to 440. Now, all cars are all-wheel drive, and naturally, the GTS is the fastest, going from 0 to 62 in 4.5 seconds. But the S isn't actually that far behind, doing the same sprint in 4.8 seconds. Now, the standard car is a little bit behind them at 6.5, but either way, no matter which Macan you go for, they're not exactly going to be slow. The boot release is this little button hidden in the rear wiper, and when you press it, you open up 488 litres of space, which isn't bad, but you get a bit more on a BMW X4 and also the Mercedes GLC Coupe. Now, the Jaguar F-Pace is actually considerably larger than the Porsche Macan. You can watch my review by clicking the link in the top right-hand corner. That being said, the F-Pace is more of a traditional SUV, whereas the Macan, X4 and also the GLC Coupe are again more of those coupe-like SUVs, so practicality isn't something they major on. That being said, the Macan is still pretty usable because the boot itself is quite deep. So while it won't handle things like bulky items such as a fridge or a washing machine, it's still going to be fine for big family holidays away to wherever you want to go. And because this car has the optional air suspension, you get a button in the boot, and when you hold it down, it'll actually lower the rear of the car, so it makes it easier getting stuff in and out of the back. Porsche boasts some of the best premium interiors on the market, and the Macan is no exception. Not only does it look really sleek and stylish in here, but everything feels extremely well made and durable. The center console is a real highlight because naturally all the buttons are illuminated when the car's on, but when you switch it off, the whole panel goes blank. Porsche steering wheels are some of the best around. Not only do they feel really comfortable, but they're also a little bit sporty as well. Now this car comes with the Sport Chrono package, which not only includes a stop clock on the center of the dashboard, but you also get a little dial on the steering wheel that lets you select between different drive modes. There's also a button in the middle of it, which is called Sport Response, and what that does is it gives you a 20-second boost to help you with overtaking. Now we've got the optional 14-way adjustable comfort seats, and as the name suggests, they are extremely comfortable. But if you want something a little bit sportier, Porsche will sell you sports seats for £1,200, and those are 18-way adjustable. And the sky is the limit with the way you want to kit your car out as well. Not only are there lots of different colours for the leathers, but you can also get a suede-like finish called Race Tex, and there's also carbon fibre to choose as well. So you can really make your Macan your own if you've got the money. The centre infotainment screen looks really sharp and is also very intuitive to use, but it can feel a little bit laggy at times. And on the dashboard, you have an analog speedo and an older version of the digital cockpit on the right-hand side. Now, it's the same setup that you get on the likes of the Porsche Boxster and also the Cayman, but a lot of the newer cars, aside from the Taycan, have a digital panel either side of an analog tacho. Now, the difference isn't huge, but they run newer software and it just feels a little bit more high-tech than what you get in the Macan. Now, you've probably heard me use the word options quite a lot when talking about the Macan, so we should really get on to pricing. Now, it all starts at $49,000 for the entry-level car and goes up to $66,000 for the GTS. This one that we have here is the S and comes in at £54,600. Now, on paper, that sounds like a bit of a bargain, but bear in mind that Porsche options lists are extensive and quite expensive. So for instance, if you want privacy glass, that's an optional extra, as is a panoramic roof, and also a lot of the driver assistant features as well. If you want adaptive cruise control, you're going to need to be paying for that as well. So all in, if you count all the options on this car, and this is by no means a fully loaded Macan, this one here comes in at £70,000. Now, being a coupe-like crossover, you'd think the Macan would be a little compromised on headroom, but that's not actually the case. I'm just under 6 foot, and even if I sit upright, I've still got plenty of headroom to go. So if you're 6 foot and over, you'll be fine with headroom. Legroom, on the other hand, is actually pretty tight. So the driving seat is in my position and there's not a lot of room left. I actually got into this car earlier when my slightly taller colleague, who's 6'1", was sat in the driver's seat and I barely fit in at all. So it really is actually quite cramped in the back of the Macan. Now, you've got a few creature comforts, such as an armrest with cup holders. We've also got climate vents back here and a couple of USB-C chargers, but it's pretty much a no-frills back seat area. So it's a bit tight and also not that interesting, but does the job. Now, if you're the kind of person who wants a car you can properly drive, no matter what body style, you'd typically go for something like a BMW or a Porsche. And while Porsches are usually a little bit more expensive, they tend to offer that slightly better driving experience. And that's mostly the case with the new Macan S. Anytime I get into a Porsche, I'm just blown away by the steering. Really, nothing comes close in the market to Porsche steering. And so it's just great to have it in a car that's not traditionally associated with performance driving. That doesn't mean it's really heavy or difficult to drive. it's just really intuitive. It's got a nice weight to it, and no matter what mode you're in, whether it's normal or sport with the Sport Chrono package, it just feels beautifully weighted and just gives you a great idea of the car's weight and where it is on the road. And because this isn't the full-blown GTS or a proper GT product, it's not sending all the vibrations of the road through the wheel. So you've got this real nice mixture of it being a comfortable steering and even a comfortable driving experience, but you still feel like this is something of where you're actually driving it rather than the car's doing most of it for you. And as I just touched on, the car feels a little bit more comfortable too, and that's because we've got the optional air suspension, which is always going to make the car feel a little bit nicer than traditional springs, and also means that we can adjust the characteristics of the suspension as well. So I've got it in its softest setting at the moment, and it just feels absolutely lovely, even though we've got those big 21-inch wheels. So let's talk about the power. I'm going to put in Sport Plus and then activate Sport Response. And you can really hear the throaty sound of the V6 come through, but I'll be honest with you, it doesn't feel ridiculously fast. Now, it's got 380 horsepower, which is quite a bit of poke, but this is a big and heavy car at the end of the day. So you don't get pinned into the back of your seat as you might be expecting. It just kind of gathers pace quite leisurely. It doesn't feel slow by any means, but if you're wanting something that feels really sporty, then that's where you'd want to go for something like the GTS. The S can get a bit of a move on, but it just doesn't have a lot of punch. It doesn't feel like a proper performance car, rather a warmed up SUV. It's quite noticeable as well if you're threading it through a few corners, is that yes, it steers magnificently and it's got a really responsive front end, but there is just a little bit of body roll. It's expected in a crossover because these are big cars and they are heavy. But usually when I get in a Porsche, I just expect them to be completely sorted in any situation. It's kind of like witchcraft, particularly when you get to a set of bends. And this is really very good. It feels great to drive on twisty corners, but it just feels compromised. You can feel that it does kind of move around a little bit. And so we should really talk about the electric Macan. Should you go out and buy one of these now or wait for the EV? Well, on the surface, it's pretty straightforward, because if you're worried about range, then it's probably best to go for the regular Macan. And if you're wanting to finally go electric and you've been umming and ahhing, then the EV is going to be the one to go for, right? Well, there are certain elements about this Macan which I think will be fixed when it goes fully electric. And the big one is space. I think you'll actually get a lot more space, particularly for those in the rear, because you won't have that big engine up front to deal with. The cabin should be a lot more roomy. So at the moment, up front, the Macan feels fantastic, but if you've got people in the back, it's really very tight. And this is meant to be a family car. This is something that you can use for lots of different occasions. And in that sense, I kind of feel it's a little bit compromised. So the EV version should be priced on a par, if not just a little bit more expensive than this current piston-powered generation. So if you're ready to go EV, I'd say wait a little bit longer and go for the all-electric Macan, because I do think it will be a better car overall. But if you're desperate to go for one right now, you really can't go wrong with the 2022 model.